So I like to look at it as mind, body, and soul. We're working with different aspects of the women, and it's just a safe space. We don't force anybody to talk about anything, but we want them to know that we are here. Services that are culturally and linguistically appropriate for victims of domestic violence or all survivors of violence are really necessary, because understanding the dynamics, the cultural dynamics of what some of the women are going through is really important, but also being able to speak their native language. A lot of times when they meet with other service providers and translators are used, so much is lost and the women don't always fully understand what's happening. I was at the Arab American Family Support Center for about 7 years. It was a social service organization, so there was multiple programs. I felt like in my career I wanted to focus solely more on violence against women. So the natural transition was to move to an organization that was focused on survivors of domestic violence and sexual assault and human trafficking. At the same time, I did not want to work at just any domestic violence organization. I wanted to work at an organization that provided culturally and linguistically specific services. So this was an amazing opportunity that I was provided with to be able to work here. So currently at New York Asian Women's Center, I oversee a few of our direct service programs. So I oversee our children's program, our anti-trafficking program, our legal services program, and one of our community offices in Queens. New York Asian Women's Center started officially providing services to survivors of human trafficking in about 2007. But prior to that, because New York Asian Women's Center specializes in providing services to victims of violence, domestic violence, in a multitude of Asian languages, when service providers came across trafficking survivors. And you will oftentimes see there is an overlap between domestic violence survivors and human trafficking survivors. The first choice was New York Asian Women's Center. In doing so, Midtown Community Court, for example, in Queens Criminal Court, started human trafficking intervention parts, in which women that have been arrested for prostitution, rather than serve prison sentences or pay fines, could participate in mandatory counseling sessions. So they saw that there were a lot of Asian women coming through the courts. So again, the choice that they made was to reach out to us, and we felt we had the skill and knowledge to be able to do so. And from then, we kind of more formalized our relationships and go to those two courts in particular on a weekly basis to be able to meet with the women. So we provide services, I think, yearly to between 60 to 100 survivors of human trafficking that have been identified as trafficking survivors. Contrary to what most believe, the majority of our trafficking survivors are actually labor trafficking survivors. There is a much bigger, even though we serve a large number, there's a lot more that have not been identified. We do a lot of outreach work, and it's with community-based organizations, different service providers, legal service providers, court systems, law enforcement. Parts of it is really informing individuals about our services, but also educating and providing information about what human trafficking is, what are some of the signs, what are some of the things to look out for, and being able to identify trafficking survivors so that they are able to access services. We also at the time had started in 2011 the Asian Women's Empowerment Program, which is really kind of a holistic one-day program where women are not really forced to talk about what's going on, but are given a safe space to be able to connect with staff members, but also to connect with other women and to kind of build a sense of community. Asian Women's Empowerment Program, or what we call the AW program, starts at 10 a.m. So the women come to the program, and the first part is, for the first hour, it's trauma-informed yoga. So they're able to, kind of do the physical piece. A lot of the women have said that they really enjoyed it. From there, we move on to our educational workshop. So every week, it's a different workshop. We work with Apicha, and they provide our women's health. We work with the Legal Aid Society, and they provide an overview of the criminal court system and what their rights are within the system, which we actually found to be extremely useful because the women have so many questions, especially in regards to treatment by, law enforcement, and a lot of their questions are able to get answered by attorneys, and a lot of those attorneys are actually people that are and will potentially be providing them with legal services. So it's a great connection. We also have a Know Your Rights workshop, which is provided by our in-house attorney, and she talks about immigration issues, some family law issues, some workers' rights. We also are starting to do more around workers' rights in general. So we're having Min Kwan, for example, come and provide a workshop on what are your rights in the workplace, because we found that a lot of the women are not aware of their rights, and this will kind of give them some background of knowing, what's appropriate and what's not. From there, we do lunch. So we provide them with lunch, and it's just a space to really kind of chat and talk about just many different things. Our counselors sit and have lunch with the women, and it's just, a nice safe space. From there, we move to our support group, and that's about an hour, in which each week is a different topic. Women are provided the space if they want to talk and if they don't want to talk. If they feel they want to take a break and maybe meet with somebody individually, they're also given that option. But we found that just creating a safe space in the sense of not forcing anybody to speak has actually been a lot better, because women feel like they're not, there's other aspects of their lives that potentially are controlled. This is not we're trying to deviate from that. And then some instances when we have big groups, we also provide self-defense right after the support group. And from there, some of the women meet with their counselors individually or are able to go home. We find that some of them end up going out, like leaving together, and it's what's been really kind of great about it is it's really been able to create a sense of community. Some of the women we find are isolated and are by themselves, so giving them a space where they're able to meet other individuals has been really great. What I've seen, especially working with women who have been arrested for prostitution, is there's always the need to identify and ask a lot of questions. And I think one of the things that we've saw over time is asking questions, a lot of questions, where clients feel are very intrusive, has actually been detrimental in being able to build a relationship and to engage clients. So providing them that space to disclose what they want and when they want has actually been really helpful in the work, in the sense that the women don't feel that we're being intrusive into their lives like others may have, because they've gone through, gone through with law enforcement where they're asking a lot of questions, the court system where they're asking a ton of questions. We didn't want to be that third layer of question asking and just kind of being intrusive. So I feel that the women have found that to be kind of refreshing, and feel that we are really there for them, not for our own benefit of what we want to gain. I think the advice that I would give for individuals that might be interested in going into the human trafficking, domestic violence, sexual assault track, or are unclear yet if that's something they want to do, our organization, for example, has a lot of volunteer opportunities to be able to kind of start and get your feet wet and see if this is something that you want to do. And if you're passionate about it, there's always a way to get in. I think people's perception is they had to have already worked with survivors in the past. I think if you have skills in working with individuals, you're able to get a better sense of how to provide services in general. So I think for individuals that are interested in it but feel maybe they can't, it's always to try. And volunteer opportunities are great. I think if you're passionate about it, that will show in your ability to be able to do the work, and join us in kind of becoming an advocate within the movement.